Effective head movement has allowed me to defeat bigger, stronger, and more experienced opponents. In this video, I'm going to explain head movement, how I do to my fighters, in a way that's easy to understand and learn. I will also explain my concept using examples of Canelo Alvarez, who has one of the best head movement in the game. I will also do a short comparison of Anderson Silva Prime using this concept and Anderson Silva Not So Prime not using this concept. You need to understand this in order to have good head movement. In fighting, there's angles and then there's positions. Now, angle would be my angle to the person, which is like a T angle when I go around somebody. The position would be my shape. So, for instance, I have three. I'll have neutral position, which is kind of straight down the middle. Then I'll have what I call positive, which is on this side of the center line. And I'm kind of set up here. And then I have negative when I switch my hips and shoulders, and I'm in this position here. Those are the three common ones, and then there's micro positions within these where you kind of move in depending on your range. You need to see head movement as transitions into these positions. So the common basic head movements are slipping, weaving, and leaning. So for instance, I'll slip to these positions, or I can weave into these positions. You don't need to wait for a punch in order to use head movement. It should be embedded within your rhythm and your style. If I stay kind of here and I'm coming forward, it's very easy to see me coming at you. However, if I'm now moving and shifting between those positions, you're not quite sure what I'm going to do. And when I'm ready, I set up and then I fire my punch, which makes it a little bit more harder for you to see, less telegraph in my attacks, and you become much more unpredictable. So if I borrow Siam here, so going back to it, angle would be where I am to him. So you have T angles when I'm here, and then you have the in-between Y angles, and then you have the straight on, head-to-head, toe-to-toe angle. My position would be the shape that I'm at. So if we're here, and I go positive, so I'm kind of off the center line a little bit here, or I can go negative, my position here. Again, changes the setups and the attacks and the defenses that I have from here. So when I'm looking to set something up, for instance, like a gazelle punch or something, I'll use head movement, even if he doesn't throw. So I'll be moving a little bit like this. So I'll be going left, right, left. I'm using slips and weaves. And then I get into the position, which is usually like this negative position. And then I'll throw my hook off that. So if I'm sparring with Siam here, I'll be moving. I'm using my head movement to get into the position. And then I'll fire in with a punch. Now I can, as I'm doing this movement, if he is to throw a punch, I can then slip and then still throw my technique after it, or take another option depending on what he does and what technique is there. So here we have Canelo. He's shifting between positions, positive and negative, and he's also manipulating his height. But each of these positions, he's got a potential strike, which makes his opponent hesitate more and requires more caution for them to throw a punch, which allows him to then actually put them under pressure. He is moving his head even when the opponent is not throwing. This actually allows him to react faster when the opponent does throw. It also allows him to make reads and see openings, so then he can later come back to that position here. He throws the jab and then goes with the left hook. He would have seen these openings in the previous movements and then committing when he feels like the timing is there. Canelo is essentially moving from position to position fluidly, which is essentially working as feints. It makes the opponent throw when they are not ready. Fighters with good head movement often get better as the fight goes on. This is because they are making reads with each movement and gradually improving their positioning. Here is another great example of Triple G moving his head when no punches are being thrown to look for an opening, and then Canelo moving his head before the punch is thrown to evade them. Let's slow this down. Triple G is moving his head before Canelo throws to look for an opening. A lot of fighters will feel the pressure and end up throwing like a lazy jab, essentially opening themselves up for a counter. Canelo decides to start moving his head before the strike's even thrown to allow him to evade the punches instead. Now let's look at Anderson Prime versus Anderson Not So Prime. Versus Forrest Griffin, his positioning is impeccable. His feet and hips are always planted with each one of these head movements, and he's able to attack from any position. He leans the punch
and is in perfect balance. Here he's in a strong positive position, potentially left hand. Here, strong negative position, potentially right hand. Because each position he is moving into is threatening, Forrest starts throwing lazy jabs and punches when he is not ready. He leans here, and although looking out of balance, his feet are planted. He then goes back into that position and then throws a beautiful left hand. This is one of my favourite finishes of all time. Yeah, he slips. Again, look, perfect balance with his back leg planted. And then he pretty much walks backwards and knocks him out. Now let's look at Anderson, not so prime. He leans out into a not so strong position. This gives Weidman the confidence to do it again and follow up with the right hand. Weak position, eats the right hand and then tries to play it off. He starts trying to move his head a little bit, but then stops again. He's not really moving into strong positions and attacking in straight lines and very telegraphed. Here he is pressuring Weidman, but without the head movement he did on Forrest Griffin. He then eats a right hand just before the bell. Now for the finishing sequence. You can see how compromised of a position this looks. He then moves into another compromised position where he eats that hook and it ends the fight.
Once you understand this, angles and positions, and then using head movement to get from one position to another, then you can create your own movement pattern and style and rhythms depending on what you like to do. So you can use this movement to set up different techniques, kicks, punches, even takedowns. If this video helped you, please do leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment in the comment section. I'll catch you next time.